Hey there, hey NEMT fam, it is that NEMT girl. I am here today with Morgan Landry, the COO of MediRoutes. Morgan, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks so much for having me today.
That is good. And I'm glad that you were able to carve out some time for me today. Again, thank you so much. This is going to be a good one because I want to tie this into scaling. I've been talking to my audience about the back end. And, a lot of providers, whether they're thinking about getting into this industry or they have maybe one or two vehicles, they may think, oh, I have to get more vehicles, right? But that's not always the case if you don't have the foundational structure in place. And so that is my focus. But before we jump into MediRoutes and how you all can save the day for a provider, I want to get some background about you, Morgan, because you have an interesting dynamic in terms of your background and the perspective that you carry from having that background. So let's talk about that. What is your background? Where do you come from?
Before I ever got into NEMT, I was actually a bartender and a waiter all the way through college. Then when I got done with that, I was looking for work and ended up at a transportation company that was the largest. By the time I left, it was the largest private NEMT fleet in the state of Louisiana. That's my home state. It's where most of my career has been, is in Louisiana. So that was back in 2012. But I started with them as an account executive. And really quickly, I learned that you can't sell something if you don't know what it is. So I started hopping in the vehicles with the drivers, learn exactly what they're dealing with, the problems, the ups, the downs, who their drivers were, who we were serving, like our clients were, the pickups and drop-offs, all the people that we deal with, including facilities and things like that. And so I learned that really quickly, just because I felt like it was critical to go sell this. I knew nothing about transportation when I started, other than I drove my own vehicle. And so I spent months doing that. And then pretty quickly after that, the dispatch manager position came available. So I didn't have to go up to account executive work that I was doing. I was actually able to influence the product that I sold. So I took on both positions. And so I did that for years. And by the time I left that company, after about 6 years, I was in charge of all business development and operations. So I was running the dispatch, managing the drivers, bringing in the new contracts, making sure we fulfilled them and everything like that. And so it was at that point, it went from when I started thinking, I had about 60 vehicles or so. By the time I left, it was over 100 vehicles. So when I left there, I got an opportunity to go to a company called Southeast Trans. It's now known as Verida. So it's your home area. Huh? So they were looking for a state director of operations, and what really got me is I was able to help. Instead of one company succeed, there were 300 or 400 companies in their network that I was able to advise and help grow, and talk to them about all the things they needed to get their ducks in a row, because I'd actually been doing it for years and just knew what a healthy operation looked like. So I was able to go over there and help them as a state director. And then I got an opportunity to work with a local company to Louisiana called MediTrans. They were actually a 13 vehicle provider at the time. And the owner called me up. He said, "Will you come here? We want to become a broker." Sure, let's try it. And so by the time I left there was a state contract that was won. And now they are the only broker. I think as of recently, they're the only broker in the state of Louisiana. So there. And then throughout the years, I ran into MediRoutes a lot. David and Steve are great guys. I've worked with them, with Southeast Trans. Verida, of course, we pushed a lot of people there because they had the platform at the time that really was what was needed to get our claims fulfilled at Southeast Trans. When I was at MediTrans, MediRoutes was also who we built a system around to do all of our electronic claims and everything like that, because MediRoutes was just stable. It wasn't necessarily always the prettiest thing, but it was the most effective thing out there. So we built our system around them. And then when they called and said, "Hey, do you want to come work with us?" I was like, "Absolutely." So I've been there. It'll be 3 years at the end of this month. As working here. Started as a director of operations, and then moved to the chief operating officer role after about a year. So that's why we're here today.
Woo! Okay.
Hopefully that wasn't too long-winded for you.
No, it was not at all. It's just you have a wealth of knowledge. It's not one box anyone could put you in, which is great because you have a different perspective on the transportation side. So I love to dive into your brain. So thank you. With that, though, I do have a few questions that I want to ask you on the operational side because of your perspective, right? So because the audience that views this, they are coming from a vast background. Some are thinking about getting into the industry. Some have maybe 1 or 2 vehicles. Some are at that hump of 3 to 5, and some are at that hump of 5 to 10, So let's go back to the 1 to 2 and the 3 to 5. What are the biggest mistakes that you feel these providers make that kind of keep them in that box from scaling and being able to grow and get over that hump?
That's a really good question because it's unique, and I've seen it a bunch of different times, but each company has different issues. I think what the most common thing is when people aren't willing to get their hands dirty. So like I would never ask somebody to do anything that I've never done. And so if you haven't driven, if you haven't dealt with a patient that's maybe having a really bad day, if you haven't had to dispatch the trips and work with the drivers and do all those different things, that's where I see people don't get they try to hire somebody immediately. I think the best thing to do is to start with what you got. If you've got a business partner that's also willing to drive, whatever it is, start from scratch as a driver, because then you learn what those drivers are going through and you know how to speak to them with what they're dealing with. And it gives you a really unique perspective. So the people that have seen that automatically try and hire 10 drivers or even 3 drivers, I'm not gonna say it doesn't work. Everybody's different, but I think that people have bigger challenges with that than if they know what they're doing. Because, theoretically, anybody knows how to pick people up and drop them off. But until you're in that pressure of having somebody's grandmother in the back seat who may be fragile, she may have a lot of medical issues, till you've done that, you can't really tell people exactly what they're going. So I think that's something that you got to be willing to get your hands dirty, and you got to be willing to just meet people where they're at, and you have to be willing to just have that servant heart to the people that you do work with. Because if you don't take care of the people that are taking care of you, you're gonna be on your own. That's a tough way to live. So that's in the 1-2 vehicle operations. It would be learn your operation back and forth, outsource what you have to after you've mastered it and understand. Because if you just outsource, say your finances, if you hire somebody to do with your finances immediately, they don't know your books the way you should. And they're not going to, because it's not their books. And so if you don't understand exactly where your dollars are coming from and where they're going, somebody can pull the fleece over you really quickly. And so if you don't have a mastery of that, I think that's where I see a lot of people fail from that perspective, is they don't understand where their money's going. Because it is like your own personal expenses and income. You get a paycheck, you've got electricity bills you got to pay. It is like that, but there's more to it than that, because it's so much more comprehensive of where you got 5 different paychecks, you've got 10 different paychecks, you've got all these different bills that you do have to pay. If you don't understand that incredibly well, next thing you know, you're in a hole and you can't pay your bills. And I think I've seen that happen more often than not. So
I've experienced it. I've experienced it. And so that's why I really speak to that point, because you're right. You have to understand each role of your company. Your drivers are going to drive your business. And if you don't have them in place, if you don't have what they need in the system that they need, you're going to find yourself always running around in a rat race and never being able to fully break away to work on your business versus working in your business. And it can happen really fast. It's like, oh, let me apply for this broker. Let me go to this contract facility and let me do this, let me do that. And you don't have the proper systems in place to make it sustainable. So to your point,
if you're the bottleneck of your business, you're doing it wrong. You cannot be where everything stops. You can't be the person. For a time you have to be, but it shouldn't be for any long period of time. You shouldn't be the person getting the midnight phone calls after a while. You shouldn't be the person who people are waiting on to start their day. You should have all those things figured out. It should be systems and not you running the business at a certain point, because you're absolutely right. You have to step out and make those relationships with the brokers, with whatever vendor you want to go buy more vehicles from, whatever it is, you've got to be able to go do that. And if you're sitting there answering every phone call for every driver that can't start their vehicle or don't know how to check their oil, whatever it is, you're never going to get out there and do that. So it's a really good point you had.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So my next question is going to speak more to the operational side of those companies that are at that 3 to 5 or even that 5 to 10. What problems in your experience, from the wealth of knowledge that you have, what problems do you see that start showing up once they hit that mark that they weren't prepared for? Because you're right, they have to have those systems in place, and they may have those in place for where they're at now, right? But then once they cross over, some things happen that they weren't prepared for.
There's a lot of things that come up, but I think the ones that come straight to mind is being compliant with all your contracts. So you do get paid for every trip you perform, because that is like a silent killer, I would call it. People, you run 100 trips. Maybe the first time you get paid for 98 of them, and then now you're getting paid for 96 of them, and all the way down to 80 of them. That's a lot of money left at the table to pay those bills, to pay those drivers. I think that's a huge thing, and it's paperwork. It's making sure that all your drivers have their training, and the correct people have that information so you can get paid. It's brokers, that's it. If it's your hospital clients, whoever it is, need to have it on file. I think compliance is one of the things that cause not only denials, but also cause you to lose your contract. If you have a problem with it, it goes overnight. It's really easy for 1 or 2 vehicles to keep on top of the registration and all that kind of stuff. But when you get 3 to 5, you really got to have a system in place for that. I think that's where I see a lot of people focus, blowing off one trip to get paid. Like, okay, I didn't get paid for this one $10 trip here, whatever it is, whatever. But, that stacks up. Next thing you know, you're trying to recoup thousands of dollars. I've seen it happen so much that people let it ride for a while. They're like, oh, I can fix it. I get that money back. So many times you can't go and, appeal that after a certain time frame. So that's just money flat down the drain. I think the other thing that people miss, and I think you kind of touched on it though, is like your driver is one of the most important people. And it's not just your driver, it's all of your employees. And what kills people is employee turnover. You need somebody that you can depend on will show up every day. And what people miss, and this is, I think I'm going to be preaching to the choir here. This is a very simple thing, but giving people a path to success within your company is so critical. So we never were the highest, when we were hiring drivers, we weren't the highest paying job to start with, but we could sit them down and show them what they'd be making over the next 3 to 5 years. And we would tie the way that their success looked to what the company needs. And with the transportation company, most of them are very simple. You don't need wrecks. You need people that are not going to get complaints. They're going to get people there on time, and they're going to show up. And so if you can give somebody, say, hey, look, for 6 months you do this, I'll give you an X amount of dollar, X amount an hour raise. If you do this amount, you do this for this long, so we give them 3, 6, 9, 12 months to where they can go look at it. And when somebody comes knock on their door with a higher paying job, they're not just looking at what they're making right now, they're looking at what they could be making. So it's like, well, if I just stick here, I know what I'm in for. I know that I got to put my time in. Then they're not competing with what you're paying them right now. They're competing with what you're paying in the future. And that works so well for us. And it's also just building a really good culture. So Louisiana, everybody loves to eat. So we would reward everybody with food, not outside of that. Yeah. So like if we had, 30 days of no accidents, first 30 days we cooked. And then the meals just got more and more extravagant the longer we went out than the accidents. And so we hit 60 days with no accidents. Boy, it was steak dinner, like you just go all the way up to whatever it is, and you take requests, and because the amount you're going to spend on that dinner for those employees and that those people that are making your business better, you're going to save so much on your insurance claims and your premiums and all that stuff that looks at a 3-year run loss ratio. It's simple to say, look, feed 100 people or pay thousands of dollars per vehicle per year. I know which I'm going to choose every time. And so we just found ways to make it fun to get everybody to feel like they're contributing to the benefit of the business, and it benefits them as well, because it's always, what have you done for me? What are you doing for me? We also make it an easy place to work. So you can guarantee people are going to stick around. And you're going to lose some people throughout the way, but if you don't want to constantly be replacing people, because that is a different productivity of your business. So you have to take care of people. You have to understand that everybody's an individual. I think this is all basic stuff that everybody knows, but as you grow, sometimes you're so busy in just doing the day-to-day that you miss that you've got to make sure and take care of the people that are taken care of. You can't take them for granted, or it doesn't work very well.
Absolutely. And aside from the amount of, money it can save you, it's also the time, because the onboarding process, the training process,
the overtime while you're doing that,
that in itself is a whole nother structure. So you don't want to have to continue to go after driver after driver, or even dispatcher after dispatcher, when, you need those good people to retain and make the business sustain. So absolutely. Now, all right, Morgan, that segues into my MediRoutes questions. Okay.
All right. What you got?
Because, we've talked about systems. We need systems. We need Backend. So for those of the viewers that have never heard about MediRoutes before, tell us what MediRoutes is and give us just a quick overview before we dive into the really good questions.
Sure. So MediRoutes is a routing, scheduling, and dispatching platform. It has you put all your drivers, all your vehicles into the platform, and it helps you schedule, and all your trips, of course, and it helps you schedule out your day. So instead of sitting there, like I used to when I first started, with an Excel sheet, and it was MapQuest back then, it'd be Google Maps now, probably trying to figure out how you pick up each person in each vehicle and which vehicle each trip is on. it helps you take care of all that. And there's so much more it does, but at the basic, that's what it does, is it helps you get more butts in seats at the same time, because that's the only way you really make money in this business, is by multi-loading. Especially if you're dependent on brokers for your trips and stuff like that, you have to get 2, 3, 4 people at a time as much as possible in there, because if you get $1 per loaded mile per person, well, it's $1 if you got one person. If you get $4 per mile, it's a lot better. And I'm just using numbers there, but that's what MediRoutes' algorithm has been doing for years and years and years, very successfully for people, is maximizing the butts and seats and minimizing the deadhead miles when nobody's in the seats. You don't get paid for that, but you're still getting wear and tear on your vehicles. You're still paying a driver, and you're still paying gas for that. Not to mention the insurance and all the other costs that go with it. So it's making sure that you can minimize that amount while still making as much money as you can.
Nice. And it's important because why? The biggest word of everything is compliance. Compliance. And yeah, we have back-end systems, but I don't think people understand how important compliance is. When you're audited, when you have to go back and trace payments, to your point, when you get to that 3 to 5, 5 to 10 vehicle hump, and now you're trying to figure out, okay, I have these bills these invoices that were supposed to be sent out 25 days ago. I have 5 days left to get them submitted, or I'm not going to get paid for them. You don't have time to go through the paper route and try to find where that money is.
No, because by that time you're behind the curve anyways. And so that's one of the great things that MediRoutes also has, is we have integrations with, I would say, all the major brokers, all the way from Motive Care, who everybody knows that's the big dog in the playground there, to Alibi, MTM, you name it, we've got integrations with this. And so that means that instead of you having to go the paper route and mail something off after you find it and wait 2 weeks and hope they got it and hope the post office didn't lose it and all those kind of fun things you deal with when you're doing paper claims, it's sent off by the time you sign up for the day. And you'll know pretty quickly if you're going to get paid for it, if you got something to do to get it up to the level it needs to be. It captures driver signatures, passenger signatures, all those kind of things are captured, so you can submit that claim for most of these over the wire and don't think about it until it's a payment in the bank for you.
Nice. So let me ask this, Morgan, because there's a lot of software out there, right? And so everyone wants to know what makes this one different, what makes this one better, what's the best software to go with, right? What makes MediRoutes stand out from all the other softwares out there?
So a couple things, but the first thing that comes to mind is it's built by NEMT people for NEMT people.
Okay.
I've been here for 3 years now. I'm not the first NEMT person they hired. If you talk to a lot of our people that work here, they used to be clients of MediRoutes. I was a client technically. It's such a good fit for people that eventually when they want to transition to something else, MediRoutes is the first thing they think of. And that goes a long way with how it's built and who it's built for. So it's not somebody out of Silicon Valley saying, I know that this is a problem and I want to fix it. It's somebody that's saying, like, I know of any NEMT company that is having these exact problems, and so I want you to learn how to fix that for them. And so the beauty of this is Steve Smith, the founder, started doing this like 18 plus years ago, where he was talking to NEMT companies about what do they need in the software. And he's built it to where it is today. And that's what's pretty incredible about it. So it's not just somebody grasping out in the air saying, I think people will like this, I think people need this. It is talking to the people who are doing the hard work and figuring out what they need to make their lives better and to get them to go spend more time with their families, to get paid for more trips, to make more money, to run a successful business. I think that's what really sets MediRoutes apart. You can go to any software will do most of the basic things. But at the end of the day, to have somebody that listens to you and understands what you're actually dealing with is pretty unique, in my opinion. And I know there are a bunch of options out there, and there are things that are right for everybody. If you talk to 1,000 NEMT companies, there are going to be 1,000 different things they need, because each one is unique. Some people do broker trips, and that's all they do. Some people do private pay trips, that's all they do. And then everything in between there is going to happen. And so what each one of them needs, to be the best company that they can be, and from a software, it's a little bit different. But what's really great about MediRoutes as well is it's not customizable, it's configurable. And by configurable means it's set up for all these things. You don't have to do anything, you don't have to get anything new made or anything like that. For most of the cases, you just have to go into the settings, go into a few other things, and you can really modify for what you need. So like we have, everybody knows funding sources. Like, It could be you're getting your trips from Motive Care and MTN. And MTN probably has one on-time requirement and one claims requirement, and Motive Care probably has a whole different one. You set each one of those up to where you can be, when you go to schedule that, you can be within the time requirements of Motive Care or MTN. It's up to you what you say the time requirements are. What your contract says, maybe you got to be 5 minutes early and you can't be more than 10 minutes late. Well, maybe you want to be 10 minutes early and no more than 2 minutes. You can make sure you run as tight or as loose as you want to in there. And I'm not saying others don't do that, but I think that is one of the big things about MediRoutes, and that's why it works for so many people, is you can configure it to what you need on a day-to-day basis.
Nice. So question for you, Morgan, because I'm going to I asked myself this same question as I was thinking about it. So I'm going to answer it after you answer it.
Okay.
But one feature from your all software that you feel is undervalued, but it's so important?
That's a really good question. Boy, you're going to get me. Actually, I got to choose one, right? I can't. I think
just one.
I think my personal favorite, honestly, just because I remember struggling with it. Remember when I was doing true NEMT, that was 2012 or like 2016. So like to see how far it's come from the fact that, okay, I'm going to try and get two into one, right? So the fact that MediRoutes is available on either an Android or an Apple device, you don't have to stock those devices. You're like, oh, it only works on Android, so I got to put an Android in every vehicle. Now you can bring your own device. I think to me, when I first started working, it was the coolest thing to me, because I remember having to go into those and they would be mounted in the AVLs would be mounted in the vehicle, and you'd have to manage those. That was a nightmare. I think that's a really cool thing. But what pairs along with that, I think, is our Where's My Ride feature, to where you can text somebody that you're on the way, and they can actually cancel the ride the night before. They can cancel it, the day of, whenever they need to. They can cancel it. So that means you don't have somebody that has to make those phone calls, and you're not making dry runs, getting no shows out there. You're preventing it, hopefully, before it ever starts. So because you can set up the links to where people they'll get a message the night before, they can get it a week before, they can get however frequently you want it before. And you can also set up to when you get within its next stop, it'll say, hey, I'm on the way. Are you sure you still want to go? Where somebody can cancel through text message right then and there. It doesn't require login. It's all compliant, all things you need, but nobody has to sit on the phone and do it. And so I think that's probably my favorite feature, is the Where's My Ride stuff. It's not always needed and everybody uses it, but I think when you need it and when you use it, it makes such a difference. We see people go from having like a 30 to 40% no-show rate down to I think the last guy said it went down to 8%, because people will cancel if you give them an easy way to. Then you don't have to have somebody sit on them and remember to make 100 phone calls the night before, 200 calls the night before. It's nope. Everybody gets a message. You get your cancellations in. You can then go reshuffle your routes and make sure that you have the best routes based on those cancellations. I think that's kind of an underrated tool.
Okay, so I think my favorite feature that I think is the most undervalued is the billing integration, because not a lot of providers understand how much time that saves them, and also efficiency, because especially when you're a new provider or you're trying to scale, you don't have time for your money to be delayed. You need that money to pay out on time when you think it's going to pay out, not when you say, oh, wait, I forgot to submit that invoice. And then you realize whatever the net is didn't start until that day when you submitted it, right? So now you're up a creek of, OMG, what am I going to do? Because you delayed, or, you dropped the ball somewhere. And it happens, especially when you're a smaller provider, when you're working by yourself, or it's just you and your partner. It does happen because so many things happen so fast, especially in transportation. So, it is important to not have to worry about something like, where is my money,
But you said underrated. I think everybody knows getting paid is one of the most important things here. So that's not an underrated. I think it's a well-known one, that getting your billing right is huge.
Yes.
I think it's a really good answer. I like that answer.
Yes, and people don't think about that when they hear, oh, okay, they can do billing too. Yes, it's billing too. Let me tell you exactly what the billing is, okay? But they understand that you have to get paid on time, and that's when the dots start to connect. So, my next question, and we're going to wrap this up soon. My next question to you, Morgan, is, where do you see NEMT going in the next 5 years? Because you've been in this industry for a while and you've seen the different changes. You've been here pre-COVID, so where do you see NEMT going to in with the next 5 years?
Well, first off, any guess is going to be wrong. I'll tell you that much because it never goes the way you think. But I mean, my first thought would be that it's going to be further and further reliant on technology. And as we've seen it over the years, just I remember when we didn't have onboard mobile devices to capture signatures, capture claims, all that kind of stuff. That was 12 years ago. You look where it is now. Like not only are they capturing signatures, they're capturing where people are, when people pick up, they can get pictures if they need. All these things have come such a long way. So I think where it's going to go is further reliance on technology to the point where you're going to see camera integrations. You're going to see, all these things that happen that are going to help control insurance costs and also help the perception of fraud, waste, and abuse, because that's always, it's a hot button topic for me right now, fraud, waste, and abuse, where it happens, but I don't think it's, I think it's easily proven to not be happening with the technology that's out there. So I think that's where it's all going to go. It's like everything's going to tie together. You're going to have a picture of somebody getting on board and be able to match their face to their Medicaid card or whatever it is. I think that's where it's all going, to where you can prove without a doubt from whatever system you're using that you gave Miss Mary a ride that day. And you won't have to submit claims. Hopefully, I should get payments to come faster. Like I know everybody would love to get paid every day instead of like on a 2-week cycle, where you got to submit everything and you got to wait, even though you send it immediately. I think that's the next place you see it happen. Payments should get faster. You should see less denials. You should see less people that are skirting the system. I don't think a lot of people are necessarily, but I think people really do expose all of us in the industry to this perception that there's a lot of fraud here. And I think you'll see that really. I mean, we can prove where people are within like seconds right now. And so when somebody says, "Oh, you didn't give that person a ride," you can say, "No, here's the GPS trail. Like they were definitely in that car for that time period, and we can see where they were. We can see all these things." So I think that's what you're going to see happen, is just going to further what you get from your software is going to be so much more than just routing, scheduling, dispatching, and billing. It's going to be just this comprehensive thing that you have that helps you run your business. You'll see more and more AI integrated into there where it can help tell you, "Oh, looks like you forgot to bill." Like you don't even have to remember to bill and say, "Hey, look, looks like you didn't submit these claims. Do you want to go do that now?" And you just hit a button and it'll go do that for you. Like I think it's going to be pretty incredible in the next 5 years, because I think we're going to make more progression in technology in the next 5 years than we have over the last 12 to 15 years.
Absolutely. And I also agree with you in the sense of the crackdown for compliance. You can't just say, "Oh, we took Miss Mary," and then the audit comes in and you have no way to prove that you took Miss Mary. So I completely agree with you with the crackdown on that as well, in terms of the integration with technology being more of a requirement versus optional. This will make my 7th year in business, and I've seen, thank you. And I've seen a lot of the changes, around surrounding technology. A lot of the brokers, when I first came in, allowed paper audits or paper trip logs. That's not the case anymore. You have to have some software, or they're making you use their software, so you have to have some type of technology integration piece with your company for sure. It's like not even a brainer question right now.
Yeah. And I think it helps with insurance and stuff like that as well. Because then you can, I know a lot of people, it used to just be a guess on how many miles you have on the road, how many miles you're driving, how many people you pick up, how many people. Now, there are reports that you can give to insurance companies to show you exactly what their risk is, how many deadhead miles you have. So even if you have 10% of your miles have nobody in the vehicle other than the driver, that's going to be a significant cost saving. And I think that's all where it's going to as well. You basically where you can see how fast the vehicle's going, all that kind of stuff. That will also help, with the harsh braking, all that kind of stuff, that you can see where the insurance goes and looks at it and says, "This is a safe driver." Or if you told this driver to do these 3 things, they would be a safe driver, and we could give you a discount on your insurance. So I think that's the other place to go, is insurance savings. I think that's the benefit to embracing all technology, is you can be one of the first people to reap the benefits of lower insurance costs. So I know that's one of the biggest things people fight, especially in Louisiana. It's a crazy insurance market right now. Anything you can do to keep the costs down, I think people are willing to. The technology is what.
Yeah. Insurance. Don't even get me started on that.
That's
for a whole nother day, Morgan. I tell you. Well, tell the people where they can find you and how they can get some demo information on MediRoutes.
Yeah, sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty responsible on there. I'm also on Facebook under my own name. Like I'm in all the NEMT groups. I think there's 150 of them that I respond to. I'm sure you see me in there sometimes. And the other thing, if you want a demo of MediRoutes, just go to MediRoutes.com. You can sign up for a demo. You can get a true NEMT professional to tell you how it worked for their business and how it could work for yours. Because it may not. You know, most people it does work for. There are people where it's not a good fit. And the great thing about Laura, our sales manager, or anybody you get, they'll tell you when it's not a good fit. Because the last thing we want is to give you something that doesn't work for you. And for you to consistently be calling us and be upset, like that's not what we want. That's not anybody wants. We want clients that can use our system and they can benefit from it. And if it's not a right fit, we're not going to tell you to use it.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that helps providers to find the right fit of software is actually doing an honest assessment of where their business is now and actually having a true idea of where they want their business to go. You can't just go shopping for software and not have a true analysis of where you are in your business because you're not going to know what you need, truthfully, and everything's going to sound good, you know? So you have to know where you are in your business. And that's what a lot of providers don't understand about operations. They don't give their business a true assessment of where it is and be honest about it, either good, the bad, because if it's ugly, it can always be cleaned up, you know? So just make sure that you're giving yourself a truthful assessment of that.
I think that's the important thing is to, when you go, like, if you're shopping for software, don't sit down with just one person. Find everybody you can. You can go on Google, you can spend 5 minutes and find 5 or 10 different ones and talk to them all because they're all going to be geared a little bit differently. Some of the software is geared towards, like, you know, school pickups, if you have that. Some are geared towards like more psychiatric type transports where you have one person on there. There's going to be so many different options out there, depending on it. You should be able to find something that really fits what you need. So by the time you talk to one or two of them, you should have a list of 10 things that you need from whatever software you choose. And then you go talk to 2 or 3 more, and that list gets to 20. And you know exactly what you need by the time you make that decision. And it's just like, the way I think about it is like when I used to go choose a phone carrier. I would say, do I get free text messages? Do I get nights and weekends for free? Like you look at all those things and check all those boxes. Like that's what you should be looking for. Is does it do this for me? Does it integrate with the broker I work for? Does it integrate with the ones I want to work for? Does it help me manage my driver's credentials? Does it help me make sure my vehicle stuff is up to date? Does it do these things? Because if you don't need some of those things, there are options out there that don't require any of that stuff. If you're just doing private pay and all you do is pick people up and drop them off and have a log of it, get that. You can get that. You can get anything you need. But if you need like a lot of things, you want to make sure that you don't find that out 3 months into using that software that you can't do that or you can't track it. That is a nightmare because then the only thing harder than starting with a new software is switching software because you've got to train people again after they just said, well, I just learned this thing. I don't want to learn this other thing. Like I just got used to it. So picking right is so important because if you change, it better be for a good reason. You better be willing to deal with a lot of headaches because you're going to have to get all your information out of one into another. You're going to have to train out your staff on how to use that. You have to train yourself how to deal with the differences of that. So I think picking the right software and spending the time, like don't just make a snap decision. Take the time to do it. Like there's a right amount of time to think about it and just talk to everybody, let it sit. If anybody's pressuring you to buy right away, that should be a red flag right there. It should be sit with it, think about it, figure out if it's right for you. And if we're right for you, you'll come back. Like whoever it is, you should come back. You should be like, oh yeah, it's very obvious. There's a clear winner, whether it be on price, on functionality, whatever it is that you need. It should be a clear winner after a little while if you sit with it and kind of look at all your options.
I agree, 100% agree. Anything that's trying to be shoved down your face too soon, a car, a plan, an insurance plan, software is not really a good thing. It's a red flag.
It's a big red flag for me. Anybody else going to buy today? Like, oh, cut the deal in half if you buy today, whatever it is. Like, man, I'll wait till tomorrow. I'll pay the fair market price.
Exactly. If it's too good to be true, it normally is. Well, Morgan, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And again, I truly appreciate your time and having you on today. Everyone, if you are not subscribed to this channel, please make sure you hit that button. I thank you for taking the time to watch this video and also drop in the comments where you want to see this go next. the content that you would like to see posted, and who you may want to see on the show next. Until next time, I appreciate you all for watching. Bye.